Hi guys, welcome back. Today I want to do a video about starting recovery. I think so many people get to the point where they are sick of their eating disorder. They know that they want to recover. They know that this isn't the life that they want to live. But when it comes to actually starting and taking the action, it can feel really overwhelming and quite confusing and like it's just, I don't know, a bit of a really challenging thing to actually take those first few steps into recovery. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is something that I have posted on Instagram about already, but I thought it was just really something worth diving into, and hopefully you can take something very practical away and you can go and get started in your recovery. As I always say, this is not a lack of knowledge. I do not think that people don't have the knowledge, but hopefully this sort of translates that knowledge into really practical, actionable outcomes for you. The first place I want to start is to write a list of all the foods that your eating disorder disapproves of. I've specifically not chosen the word fear food here because I think that sometimes that has connotations that don't match up to reality. So yes, fear can look very different for a lot of different people, but I'm going for disapproves of. So these are foods that your eating disorder is very resistant to. So that could show up as resistance. That could show up as compensatory behavior. It could show up as I can eat that, but as long as I've done this or eaten that or won't eat that later. It's all of those conditions. And I think getting really honest, this is that time to get super honest with yourself, to think about all the different types of food and all the different rules and all the different behaviors that you might have around these foods. And as best you can, as specifically as you can, write them down. It does take a lot of honesty, and I think the other thing to remember though is that this isn't a once and done activity. You can keep adding to that list, and sometimes I certainly found in my recovery, it wasn't a huge list to start with because I didn't think that I had that many rules. And as I started working through them, I was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not okay with that. And as I say, for me anyway, and it might not be the same for you, I didn't have anything that was totally off limits. There was no food that I just would not touch. So much of my eating disorder lived in the conditions. It lived in the rules and the compensating and all of the combinations of food and activity that I would or wouldn't let myself have. So that's where we need to start, by identifying as many foods as we can or as many behaviors and conditions that your eating disorder disapproves of. So my second tip is to take that list of eating disorder disapproved foods and go to the grocery store. We want to stock the shelves as abundantly as possible with foods that your eating disorder does not like. This does a couple of things. I think in terms of that abundance mindset, it really helps to show we have plentiful food in the environment, and it's all of the stuff that your eating disorder doesn't like. It kind of backs you into a corner to go, okay, this is all that I've got available to me at home, so this is what I have to eat. I also know that this can be really tricky. I think you can have all of the best intentions. You can go in, you've got your list, and when you get to the supermarket, because there's so much muscle memory, there are so many ingrained neural networks to say, go and pick up the safe food, go and check the back of the packet, go and do the things that you've always done. So I think this is a really good time to take someone that you trust with you, or potentially even order those groceries online so you don't get overwhelmed in the moment, so that they can just be delivered to your door. That's what you've got to work with. The next thing that I really recommend, and I know that this was quite game-changing for me actually, was to also remove the safe foods from your house. So not only do we have all of the eating disorder disapproved foods that we've just bought from the grocery store, but we've gotten rid of the safe foods. And I know that a lot of you will probably think, oh my gosh, we can't waste food. Well, don't waste it. You know, you can donate it. You can give it to friends. You can give it to family. You can give it to, you know, your local food banks. We don't have to waste that food, but it is important to remove it from your home, because it is so easy in those moments. As I said, you go to the kitchen with all of the best intentions and you open the cupboard or open the fridge and you see your safe foods, and those neural networks are just automatic. They're right there. So all of a sudden, you're flooded with these impulses to just take the easy route, to know that just one more of these and I'll do that challenging thing tomorrow or later. And as we know, tomorrow never comes. This is an eating disorder we're playing with. Everything has to happen now. Recovery is urgent. Recovery happens in the present moment, not in the future. My next tip is around restful distractions. So have a go-to list of restful distractions. You know that if you only have eating disorder disapproved foods in your house, you don't have the option of safe foods anymore, your eating disorder is going to have an opinion on that. There is going to be some pretty strong backlash, and it is going to want to overwhelm you so that you end up going down that easy neural network. But we can be prepared for this. And I think one of the ways that we can be prepared is to actually have that list, because in the moment when you're overwhelmed with guilt and anxiety and such discomfort, like you feel like your skin is crawling, it can be so hard to rationally think, oh, well, what can I do to distract right now? Like nothing feels like it's going to be a good distraction. And I'll admit, like, it's probably not going to entirely take your mind off it, but if we can sit with those uncomfortable, distressing emotions, I promise you it passes. The wave will pass, and all you have to do, I know it sounds simple and I know I make it sound easy, but all you have to do is sit through it and distract yourself as best you can. I think some of the things that I found really helpful were, pretty obvious things, like watching my favorite series on repeat mid-afternoon. It was going and having a chat with a friend or a family member. It was going and sitting on my balcony in the sunshine and just soaking up the sun. Maybe listening to some music. Singing was a really important one for me. I actually found reading quite challenging. I think I found it, as much as I love to read, I didn't find it as engaging as I needed it to be. So I found something a bit more involved. I'm not a huge gamer, but I have definitely heard that video games, I really understand that, could be a very, very good distraction. I think also any sort of crafts, I think things that involve your hands as well as your brain, really good. So take up knitting. Let's go grandma core. Take up knitting or crochet or embroidery or jigsaw puzzles, drawing, any sort of art. And I think crucially, you don't have to be good at it. This is not about being good. And even then, that might be a benefit. That might really challenge that often seen trait of perfectionism. So that's just a few ideas, but ultimately have your list of the things that you know that will at least somewhat distract you. Have it ready to go, have it on your desk, on your fridge, wherever you can see it, so that in that moment of overwhelm, you can see it and you can go and do one of those things. So my next tip is to build a recovery capsule wardrobe. I think the perception of your body changing and how it feels in your clothes can be really distressing. It is a very uncomfortable process for most people with an eating disorder. It is entirely normal and wonderful and means that you're moving in the right direction. But I think if we can limit that physical sensation and make you feel comfortable in your skin to the best of our ability, that is going to be a really big game changer. Because I know that I have gotten so used to my body, but it was great when I was going through it to just not have that heightened awareness of any bodily changes. So I'm talking like loose, comfortable clothes. I'm not saying you need to hide yourself away, but make sure that you're wearing clothes that you feel comfortable in. Buy clothes that have elasticated waistbands. Linen is my best friend, even now, but when I was going through recovery, it's just so floaty. It looks so lovely. It looks very chic. But find what works for you, and I would definitely not recommend wearing skin-tight, form-fitting clothes while you're going through that weight gain, weight restoration journey. The next one is around support seeking and communication. And I think it is so important, if you can, to talk to people in your life who you trust. It really only has to be one, maybe two people in your life that you can talk to about your recovery, that you can talk to about, in particular, your commitments. I definitely found, and it is not unusual, that an eating disorder thrives in isolation. If you don't communicate your recovery commitments, in the back of your mind, your eating disorder is like, all right, I've got a get out of jail free card here. No one else is going to hold me to account. And of course, recovery ultimately comes down to you. Your recovery buddy, your partner, your friend, your parent, your sibling, they can't do recovery for you, but it can really help you keep yourself accountable if you know that someone else is on your team, if you know that someone else cares about your recovery and is there to support you. I definitely know that I had these moments of knowing what my recovery commitment is and forcing myself to articulate it to my partner, saying to him that this is what I'm going to do. This is my recovery commitment. And I knew there was this little voice at the back of my head going, oh no, we now have to follow through with that because he's going to hold me to account. And you know what? It was the best thing that I ever did, because it wasn't so much that he held me to account. It was the fact that him knowing let me hold myself to account. It was actually ultimately a verbalization of my own empowerment. And I think that that is something that we can all take away, that verbally articulating to someone your own commitments, your own intentions, allows you to follow through better. So I really recommend that if you've got a person or people in your life that you trust who understand recovery, at least to a certain degree, use them as your sounding board, use them as your accountability partner. And I promise it will really help you to maintain your own accountability. And finally, I think come back to and physically write down your recovery whys. The act of physically writing really connects you to those whys. And I think it is that sort of zooming out that we all need throughout the recovery journey. I think it is so easy to get caught in the minutiae, caught in the day-to-day, caught up in each decision and overwhelm of these decisions that you can lose sight of why you're doing this in the first place. So coming back, reconnecting to that as often as you might need. That might be after every meal or every snack of your day. It might just be once a day at the start of the day. You find out what works for you. But ultimately, having that physical action of writing, connecting to your core whys. What is it that you want from your life? What is it that recovery is going to give you? What is motivating you to do this pretty challenging process? There is something there. There's always a why. And coming back to it, reconnecting with that as often as you need to is an incredibly powerful tool to start recovery and to maintain it the whole way through. They are my top tips. It is, as I said before, not an exhaustive list, but I hope that those have been helpful. I hope they've been actionable. I hope you can take at least something away from this and go and start your journey. Because if I know anything from my own experience, from the experience of so many others who have recovered, it's that we all wish we started sooner. There isn't going to be a right time. There isn't going to be a time that you feel ready. But hopefully these tips, these very practical concepts can help you to make the change that you need to today. Just don't wait, do it today, take the action, you won't regret it. Always up for a chat, you know where you can find me, but take care and go do it now.